All right, folks, I'm here with Jeremie Hudson of Three Bridges. Welcome to the Andrew Brunet Show there, Jeremie.
Hey, Andrew, glad to be with you today.
You know, one of my favorite groups of all times is Three Bridges, and I hear that y'all are on the final tour. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the group's been going for 21 years. Elliot McCoy, who started the group in 2001, an original member, of course. The guy's 77 years old, and he don't look it, he don't act it, but hey, 77, that's just sort of a time most people are already in the, really, really staying at home and being at home with their family. And Elliot's been moving and shaking for so long. And, every good thing comes to an end. And we just felt like that this year, the Lord was speaking to each of us to move on and do something different. Shannon and I have been with Three Bridges for 13 years. And, it just felt like it was time, that God was telling us it was time. So I know that's sort of a broad statement to say, but that's really, what we were feeling.
You know, you joined the group in 2010. Did you ever imagine that you would be on such a dream as just following the path of Three Bridges?
You know, I met Three Bridges, and I tell you a little bit of a backstory. I was with the Imperials for 10 years, and I met Three Bridges then, back in the early 2000s, 2004 or five, something like that. And man, I fell in love with the guys then. I fell in love with Elliot. I fell in love with the music. It's the music has an imperial feel to it, sort of. It's sort of. I mean, without a bass, of course. And I fell in love with them then. But when Elliot called me in 2010, the first part of 2010, I really wanted to be done. Thought I'd be off the road. And then when he told me that Shannon, who sang with me in the Imperials for 6 years, was going to start, on the group or going with the group as well, man, it just felt like I was supposed to do it. And I prayed about it for about 3 or 4 months and decided to do it. And like you said, wow, 13 years later, I mean, 13 years, it feels like it's been 13 years in a lot of ways. And then in some ways, it really feels like we've just started.
So you've had many number one songs with the group and everything, and one of my favorites is a high energy song that y'all do called "Feel a Little Song Coming On."
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit about that song.
Well, just the story. It's really about Paul and Silas being locked in prison. They were locked in the lower dungeons. They were possibly hanging on the wall. And Ronnie Henson came over to Elliot's house back when Three Bridges started. You know who Ronnie Henson is, of course, the Lighthouse and all that. I mean, a fantastic man, a fantastic songwriter. He came over to Elliot's house and said, "Hey, man, I want to write a song for Three Bridges." And that cat just sat there and wrote that song right there. And Elliot looked at him and said, "We'll take it." So, I mean, wow. 16, 17 years later, here we are. And still, still today, it's one of the 3 or 4 have to do songs every night, or you're going to get somebody come to the table and say, "Why didn't you do my favorite song? Feel a little song coming on."
You know, so being with Three Bridges, what would be one of your favorite songs that you hope has made an impact to folks?
Oh, wow. I feel like we've got so many great songs. Satan and Grandma was a big song that really speaks to me personally. And I find that it speaks to a lot of people who grew up like I did. My dad traveled professionally singing. And so I grew up, my grandparents raised me. And boy, I remember so many prayers and so many times them saying, "Let's get on our knees and pray." And we would stop whatever we were doing and pray. And it didn't have to be just for meals. It was like when they felt the need to pray, they stopped what they were doing and they prayed. And, I find so many people like me that they have seen their grandparents and or their parents, and which my parents are as well. My daddy was a prayer warrior. Um, I mean, it speaks to so many people about not just what their grandparents did, or like I said, their parents did, but how important it is for us today. Because I'm almost 50, And hopefully I'll have grandkids soon. But it just speaks to me today and to my generation about the importance of watching our grandparents and our parents pray, and now it's our turn. And so that's one of the songs that, first off, it speaks to me personally, and I find that it speaks to a lot of people on so many different levels.
You're coming up on one of your final national quartet convention stops.
Yeah.
Tell us, is there anything special that you might have planned for this special tour stop?
Well, we sang Sunday night, so we've already sang one time, and then we'll sing Friday morning, and then we'll sing Friday night. And Andrew, I didn't think that I was going to be as emotional as what I've already been, and sitting there going, "Oh wow, this may be my last time here." Uh, so it's hit me personally a lot harder than I thought it was going to, and seeing so many of my friends, now, friends that sing, friends that are fans, that we don't call them fans, we call them friends, and that I sat there Sunday night, and boy, I about broke down several times, knowing, especially if I don't continue traveling, that this will be the last time I see a lot of these people um, until heaven. And so, I mean, that's been a little tougher than I thought it was going to be.
So, introduce us a little bit to where you got familiarized with gospel music.
Oh gracious. Well, like I said, my daddy sang professionally for 13 years, and he always had gospel music playing. Whether in the car, at home, he still to this day, he's suffering from dementia, but to this day, when I go to their house, Mama will have gospel music playing, and he created. I really feel like he created a love of that music, and not just Southern gospel music, but gospel music. He really created a love in me and my brother as well, that still lives on today. And man, there's so many groups. Gold City, I'm from Alabama, and Gold City being right up the road. Um, just man, we used to see them sing the cathedrals, of course, the Gaither Vocal Band. So many Florida Boy. I mean, you go down the list, the Statesmen. I could go for a long time and tell you how many of those guys, some that are already gone, but some of those guys spoke to me as a kid, and now I'm passing that message along, because again, after all, it is about the style. But if the message, if it's just a style, if there's no message, and we have the greatest message in the world. So yes, I was called to do gospel music, but so many of those guys, some of which now, oddly enough, I'm extremely good friends with, um, it rounded my life. It made me what I am, and I love it. I just love it.
So many may or may not know that in 1998 you received your exhorter's license from the Church of God.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about when you were called to preach.
Well, my daddy, he came off the road when we were kids, and he was trying to find something to do at home or work from home to where he could still go out and sing and minister. And I remember, Andrew, and you're going to think I'm weird. And maybe you already do, but you're especially going to think I'm weird now. Daddy used to take my brother, who's older, out to work in the shop. He had a car lot, and he couldn't make it as a used car salesman because he was too honest. But he would take my brother out and work on the cars, and he would leave me in the house and outside doing yard work, but in the house doing housework. And I would have the cathedrals playing. I would have maybe someone preaching. And Andrew, I remember very well me preaching and singing to those dishes when I did them as a little boy. I don't know if I changed their life at all, but I do know this: they got cleaned up. But I would sit there again, Andrew. This is how much I love it. I can remember coming home from school and sitting there doing my homework and have the cathedral playing. I mean, I remember doing my homework and singing so it was in me. I like to say I was born on a bus. I basically was, and I just always felt the call to do it. It's always been what I've wanted to do. Felt like I was called.
And that's what it's all about, saving souls. I mean, we can get up on a stage all day long and sing any kind of song, but if the message doesn't have an impact on us, then
Right.
we're doing it all for the wrong reason.
Well, Andrew, if the impact doesn't have an impact, if the message doesn't have an impact on the person singing it first, how can it impact others really? I mean, I know that the gospel isn't void and God's word isn't void, but I'm singing a message that if I don't believe in, then what am I doing? And that's why I felt called to do this. I felt called to minister and to impart the word to people so that their lives can be full and their lives can be complete.
And I always say in my ministry, no man knows joy until they've met Jesus, because joy starts with J, and that J is Jesus.
That's right. Yep. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And boy, do we need ever more need joy in this time that we're living in. We really do. We really do. Otherwise, it's just happiness, and happiness is it's fleeting. But joy is a foundation you can build your life on.
So you sit here talking about preaching and singing to dishes, and I'm sitting here. You brought back to my attention. I remember as a child, I had stuffed animals sitting on the
Yeah,
bookshelf, and man, I would sing to them things and
that's right.
preach to them things. And man, a stuffed animal can't get saved, but man, when the Holy Ghost came in that room, I wonder if they got slain in the spirit.
They may
Amen.
have, man. I remember. I think it was T.D. Jakes said when he was young in ministry, he said nobody wanted to hear me preach. He said so I'd go out and I'd preach to the squirrels. He said I would, and it reminds me of David, Andrew. I mean, David. Where do you think he learned to play and sing? Man, he did it while out there taking care of his father's sheep. And that's where he learned and established that foundation that later on let him take on Goliath, let him be the king after God's own heart. It started out there with those sheep when nobody was listening but him and God. And I think that's like you said, your stuffed animals and my dishes. I hope we change their life.
And that's what it's all about, changing lives for the better. And I would like for you to share a memorable experience about traveling with Three Bridges.
There's a lot. There's a whole lot, and I can recall. I was talking to a radio guy in NQC, and he asked me to do sort of the same thing, and I can recall many. But what I said to him is something maybe I'll say to you, and then I'll give you a for instance. Even, it's every single one of them. I can't recall every single one of them, but I tell you straight up, I know in my heart of hearts every single one of them that we bowed down and got saved. One of the bigger things that we do, other than NQC, is we used to work a lot with the Amway Corporation, and they would call. And this is a for instance. So this is you asked me a broad question. I gave you sort of a broad answer. Now I'll bring it down a little bit. The Amway Corporation called Becky Simmons' agency, which is our booking agency, and asked for some entertainers. And she said, well, we're gospel people. They said, well, we just want some people that can sing. And she said, all right, I'll send you Three Bridges. And so we got there and we asked them, when we sing on Sunday morning, can we share the gospel? I mean, our songs will, but can we have an altar call? And they said, sure. And Andrew, we've watched 1,800 people get saved in one service, and we've watched about 700 get saved in another service. And those individuals individually are just as important as the one that got saved at the church, that's running 16 people. So that's why I said it's sort of a broad answer that I'm going to bring down. But just seeing things like that, as Elliot says, it reminded him of a Billy Graham crusade. It really felt that way, and it was very, very humbling. Not just to see hundreds come down, but when one person can believe what we're singing, and faith allows them to believe in what we're singing about. That's what exactly why we do what we do.
And you sit there and you talk about 1,400 people getting saved. That's not one. That's
Right.
1,400, and I can only imagine the song that was being sung by Angel. It says 1,400 people
Ooh, boy.
got saved. I mean, just sit there and think about that.
Yeah,
Goodness.
the Bible talks about partying when one comes home. That was a big party they were having, and rightly so. I mean, it brought. It's so easy when you're doing, what you're called to do, to sit back and go, oh yeah, because I did that. Well, no, when you see somebody get saved, you realize real quickly, man, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. They just believed what I was saying, and God did that. And it's just powerful to watch things like that.
Well, Jeremie, we have had a great time with you. Thank you so much. But hey, before you go, share with us a funny story that has happened with Three Bridges.
Oh my gracious. Well, there's a lot. Most of them involve Elliot, of course. But I better leave most of those to the unknown. There's so many. I mean, there's so many times, and I'll share a little bit behind the scenes stuff. There's so many times, and again, I'll make it more of a broad answer here, but there's so many times on stage where the people that's sitting down listen, they don't know what's going on stage, and you're on stage and something will happen. Somebody will say a wrong word, hit a wrong part, and you're up there and you're ready to lose it. And you hold it together as best you can, but that's happened a lot of times with Three Bridges. And our bus is full of joy. There's a lot of laughter. Everybody's cutting up. We love each other. I don't think there's been more than a few cross words in 13 years said on that bus. We just love each other and get along. Not that you can't say cross words when you love someone, but what I'm saying is, that just seemed like the vision was so straight and so pointed toward one thing that, we all came from different areas, but we had the same goal. And so, it just kept us pointed in the right direction. But man, there's so many things on that stage. And people that watch, if you'll watch closely, sooner or later, you'll see an individual who gets a little tickled or looks at somebody sideways like you really messed that up. But, I better leave the particular to that one alone, because again, it mostly deals with Elliot, and I don't want to get fired before our last concert on December the 18th.
So tell folks how they can find out more about Three Bridges or come and see y'all on one of your final tour stops.
Okay, well, threebridges.net, threebridgesmusic.org. Basically, just look up Three Bridges Music, Three Bridges Gospel, and you'll find us. We're also on Facebook, and that's real easy to find. Just type out the word Three Bridges and look for us. And again, our last concert that we've got scheduled is for December the 18th. And we're going to be in Alabama. We're going to be in Florida, Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana a little bit. I think North Carolina a little bit, and then that's going to be it for the group.
Wow. Well, Jeremie, thank you so much for coming on with us. God bless you, my friend, and you're welcome back on the program anytime.
Thank you, Andrew. God bless you too, bud. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.